Hey, look, another one. And I went to Washington, because of course I did. Um, when I named off which teams I thought were contenders, and I left out Washington. Maybe contenders. Again, I left out Washington. We've watched the Capitals come up short. Close, but short. The last couple seasons. The Penguins are their nemesis. The Rangers are their nemesis. And any path to any kind of playoff success goes through New York or Pittsburgh in that division. I look at this lineup and I'm like, what happened? How did we get here? Because right now, and the site I'm using for this is, I think, Roto World. Let me see here. Roster Resource is the site that I'm using to find, and I don't go by theirs either. I look at some of theirs, I'm like, that guy's not playing on that line. They got Wilson on the second line, and here's the thing, I want to drop Wilson off the second line. And I looked at that, I'm like, Tom Wilson's not a second liner. Vrana obviously would go in there, right? So Vrana would go in here ahead of Wilson. Vrana's a rookie. We don't know what we got with Vrana yet. There's too many babies. Gustafson, Mitchell, and Bindulis. I probably massacred that. Probably Bindulis. So I'll go with Bindulis. Gustafson, Mitchell. All NCAA signings. That's why I want to say Bindulis, because he's probably American. But Bindulis, Mitchell, Gustafson, all NCAA signings. So here's the dice. Roll them. If the Capitals got 3 steals out of the NCAA, their problems are solved. Down the middle, they're good. Like Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Eller, and Beagle. That's pretty good. On the wings, Ovechkin, Burakovsky, that's good. And then Graovac and Liam O'Brien is put into their lineup on Roster Resource. And I'm not sure. I think Smith-Pelly would probably play ahead of him, but Smith-Pelly as well bought out by the Devils. So when a team that can't score says, we're not keeping you, there's an issue. Oshie, Vrana, Wilson, Connolly. Connolly had a relatively decent season. I've picked Wilson as a guy before. Last summer, I picked Tom Wilson as a guy that I thought was a breakout candidate. I do think he has the potential to score more goals and points than he's shown. And I think in this past year's playoffs, he showed that. I mean, against the Leafs, he had a pretty decent goal. And he has potential, but he's not top 6. Not on a contender. The one I just did, Sven Berchi, said Berchi on a contenders in the top 6. So, while with the Canucks I was able to draw a line through the top 9 and say, here's your top 9, I can't do that with Washington. I don't see Graovac. I don't know. I guess Vrana can switch over. I don't know. The Capitals have issues. The Capitals could not afford to keep Shattenkirk. Had to trade Johansson, which leaves a large hole in this lineup. You put Johansson into this lineup, and they're fine. But the Capitals, yeah, they've lost something here. And when you look at the guys who are out there that they've lost as free agents, like they could bring back Winnick, and that could bring back some depth on their wings. Maybe Chris Bourque gets another shot. Probably not. Could be a great guy, not an NHL level player. Chandler Stevenson. Is Riley Barber ready? What about Zach Sill? Zach Sill is still on their depth chart. I'm like, Zach Sill's still around? Good for him. And I mean that. But this entire offense is iffy. Can Oshie replicate what he did this season? Can 17-18 be as good for Oshie? That's a debatable question. Backstrom is a top-notch, fantastic all-world forward. Ovechkin, 30 goals at worst. But is there enough here? And then get into the defense. Orlov, Carlson, Orpik, Niskanen, Chorny, Ness. This is just once. I got to look something else up. All right, so I loaded it up in Cap Friendly, and yeah, that's wow. So if Johansson's ready to come up, good for him. Welcome to the league, brother of Ryan, and hopefully you're ready to play a role. Is Bowie ready to come up and perform at an NHL level? Christian Juice, greatest name in the history of hockey, I think. I'd love to see Christian Juice come up just so I can yell, I love me some Christian Juice. It just doesn't, they're words that don't sound like they belong together. That's why there's the exclamation mark, and it's all capitals, even more so than the other capitals for the Capitals. I didn't expect to do that. I'm very sorry. I would edit that out, but I don't edit. We know that. It's one take and done. So yeah, this is problematic. Orpik is not a top 4 defenseman. He's not. And I don't know that Chorny or Ness are I don't know that I want them together as my 5-6 guys. So there's the thing. So I look at it and I say, this is a roster that needs to add. And they got $4 million in cap space. Well, Markov wants more than $4 million. And I don't think Markov goes here. So while they freed up some cap space for themselves, and congratulations on that, and they don't have any contracts that are outstanding right now, there's issues. There's issues here. And to ignore that, you do at your own peril. Holtby, Grubauer, and Copley are their 3 goalies. Clearly, Grubauer wasn't worth as much as Washington thought he was. I think Washington was probably trying to trade Grubauer, and the market was soft. So does this team make the playoffs? I think it does. I mean, I've gone back and forth on it, and I honestly have been debating about whether or not the Capitals, with what they've lost, combined with the fact they fell short again, and this team has gotten a year older, I asked myself, can this team do it? Because there have been teams before that have been at the top and then just fallen apart. And I cheer for one, and I just did a video for one called the Canucks. It does happen. It's not often. And I can't see the Capitals falling that far, especially because you've got Holtby in net, and people say, oh, Holtby sucks. You don't win Vezina trophies by sucking. He may not have been great in the playoffs, and I'm being kind by saying it, but he had a lot of help. I think Carlson is a very good defenseman. I think he is probably underrated, and next summer he becomes the Caps' new headache because he's UFA. I think this top 3 center group of Backstrom, Kuznetsov, and Eller, that's one of the best top 3 center groups in the NHL. And then, of course, you have Ovi and Burakovsky on the left side. And I think Burakovsky's going to come into his own this year. And I think Ovechkin is capable of getting his goal totals a little higher again. He had a rough season this last year in that he was being asked to do things that I don't think Ovi wants to necessarily do. He kind of looked out of place at times. It reminded me of when Tortorella was in Vancouver. And he was asking the Sedins to do things they didn't feel comfortable doing, didn't want to do. And it affected their point totals. It did. It really affected them. And they said all the right things. But in the end, when he moved out and Desjardins moved in, their point totals went up. But if Ovechkin's waiting for Trotz to go, I think he's going to be waiting a while. I think the Caps are dedicated to staying with Barry Trotz for as long as possible. And Caps fans can debate whether or not that's a good thing. But this is a tough lineup to like as a Cup champion. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I am projecting them as 4th in the division. And I went back and forth on this. And I do think they will make the playoffs, but they're going to be a lower seed and they're going to have a hard time. The good news is traditionally, the Caps play better as underdogs than they do as favorites. The Capitals, I really think, as underdogs can do it. But when I say they can do it, I mean a first-round upset. I don't think they go any further than that. And if this fourth place finish means they face a first place Penguins in the first round, that's not good. And right now, that's probably where it would end up. But it's tough, and again, it is really, really hard to project who's going to make and who's not going to make the playoffs. And I'm really putting it on the line here. My final projections: there's not as many teams making it into the playoffs that didn't make it this season as I originally projected, and that bothers me because I know I'm going to end up being wrong, and I have a feeling this could be a team that proves me wrong and misses the playoffs. I know what they did last year. I know they were first overall. I know. President's Trophy, they were great all regular season. This blue line is hurting. They lost Alzner, they lost Shattenkirk, and I don't feel like Orlov is going to step in and do what Shattenkirk was doing. And I don't think, while people complain about Alzner defensively, and they complain about his speed and he's not that great. I don't know who replaces him on this blue line. Orpik? Do you want Orpik playing a bigger role? No, Capitals fans don't want Orpik playing a bigger role. So I don't know where you go from here. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why they didn't just buy out Orpik and keep Johansson. So you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. I know this may not be as popular video, both in views and in terms of my opinion as other videos, but I think they scratched into the playoffs. I think they finished fourth in their division, and this blue line, if one injury, Carlson gets hurt, they're done. John Carlson should be wrapped in bubble wrap on that ice this year because they cannot afford to lose him. And as much as I love these three centers, they can't afford an injury there either. This is a team that, because of the depth issues that the cap has given them, they cannot afford any major injuries. If Holtby gets hurt and Grubauer comes in for an extended period, that might be okay. But any other move, any other major injury, and they're done. And I know there's other teams in that position, and I'll get into that as we get into these previews. But that's my preview on the Capitals. You guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through the internet and want to find your way back here. And thank you very much for watching. This is fun stuff. I don't like... It's funny because last year I loved projecting who was going to make the playoffs and who wasn't. I hate it this year. I hate it. Because there's a lot of teams I'm projecting to miss the playoffs, and I'm saying there's no way they're going to miss the playoffs. So I'm fighting with myself on these. So you'll see that as this series goes along. Thank you very much for being a part of it and for being a part of the onwards and upwards that this channel is experiencing. I know I'm using the old board today. The new board is down there. I'm going to start utilizing different boards for different things. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.